different energy and vibe around the bubble over the last 24 hours. Not that anybody is rooting for anybody. They truly are not. But people have started to pack their bags, and you have to wonder how much the Miami Heat have sensed that, have witnessed that. Plans for departure are in play for people to leave tomorrow, as Kristen said, if the Lakers can burst that bubble. The Lakers themselves, as Kristen mentioned, going to wear those black Mamba jerseys, which they are undefeated wearing this season. And LeBron James has never lost in the NBA Finals when he has a chance to close out the opponent. What makes him so particularly good in these moments?
Well, I think, first of all, we know his remarkable talent. But I think, second of all, you look at year 17, physically how he's still dominating. But I think also right now is he just has that mindset, and he keeps adding something. And he keeps picking his spot late in his career to just take over a basketball game. And what's so beautiful about his game is we've had a lot of dominant players, but when you have a player this versatile, being able to dominate at so many different facets of the game. You just looked the other day, in that game 4, he had 20 points in that second half, and he decided to go downhill and just impose his will. And just looking at a guy at year 17, and I kept looking at his numbers, and I had to make sure that it was right. He's averaging close to 28 points, 11 rebounds, 8.5 assists, and 54% shooting, Jared, in the finals in year 17. It's remarkable.
But, believe it or not, he does not have finals MVP locked up just yet. The only man who likely could take that from him tonight would be Anthony Davis. You sat down with him, and coming up later on in the pregame show, we'll have that lengthy conversation that you had with Anthony Davis. Do you get the sense that he's ready for this moment, or, as some Laker fans may be nervous, that they see the Game 3 version of AD?
You know, I think he's so good, and even like when I sat down with him, he said I had a subpar Game 3. But if you really go back and look at his numbers and his impact, it just wasn't what the capability of Anthony Davis can have, because the game is so easy. And like LeBron, he can dominate in so many areas. He talked about being able to ask for Jimmy Butler in Game 4. He wanted that defensive assignment, able to slide his feet, contest, and he's unbelievable on the defensive end. I just look at Anthony Davis, and my guy who I picked to be the MVP before this year, not in this series in the playoffs, but the entire regular season. If he can put his mindset to be, I'm the most dominant defensive player, I'm the most dominant offensive player, and I have skills back in Chicago when I played high school that I can play and distribute. Just have that mindset pretty much every trip down, because watching him up here, up close, Jared, in this bubble with no fans really here, you can see, we look up and we're watching, and I go and look up at the scoreboard, and he has 20, 10, 6, and I don't feel like he showed us the best of Anthony Davis, which is scary.
Sure.
In year 7, I think he's in, that I still think he has a lot to improve. Again,
Smitty's conversation with Anthony Davis coming up a little later on in the pregame show. The one big adjustment that the Lakers made in Game 4 was putting Anthony Davis on Jimmy Butler, who seems to be reluctant to shoot the three-point ball. How does Jimmy Butler assert himself in a must-win game tonight?
You know, I'm going to go back when I was growing up in Detroit, you know, in the parks and everywhere. You're going to look at, as a big guy guarding you when I was small, find a way. And I think the one thing is, even though he doesn't shoot jump shots, he's going to have to find a way, and also within the team confine. And one thing I look at is, if you're a big guy, you don't want to chase. Even though Anthony Davis is a great one-on-one defender, help defender, and all those attributes, but run him off screens. Make sure he catches the basketball where Anthony Davis is in the move, because that isolation at the top standstill advantage Anthony Davis if you're not a three-point shooter. Second for me is he's going to have to be a great screener. If you set a great screen, then Anthony Davis is going to either have to show or switch. Now you have a chance to have the basketball go against a different opponent if you're Jimmy Butler. Last for me is get the rebound because you cross-match, and push before Anthony Davis can come and try to set up and get and collect you at half court.
We'll see what adjustments the Miami Heat are going to make. In addition to your conversation with Anthony Davis, we have much more to do from up here in Orlando. I'll chat with both head coaches and keep you up to date on any late-breaking news prior to game number 5. And of course, Kristen, you'll want to come back after the game if the Lakers are able to clinch their 17th NBA championship. We'll be celebrating along with the players and talk with LeBron, AD, and the likes of many, many more here live in Orlando.
Well, I'll be back regardless, but I'm glad you told the audience to come back as well. Thank you, Jared. Thank you,
It's your job.
Smitty.
You have to. Yes.
I'll talk to you soon. All right, as promised, our Hall of Famers, Isiah Thomas. Oops, there's no right way to point. It's like the Brady Bunch open. You know, Isiah Thomas, Kevin McHale's down there. There, okay, Grant got, all right, of course. He does it perfectly on his very first try. Welcome in, you guys. Coach, if you were down in the bubble, would you have packed your bags? Would you have booked a flight for tomorrow at this point?
Booked a flight. I'd have got a car so I could leave right after the game if I was down there for 4 months. I mean, holy smoke. You know, Greeny's laughing. Greeny's got all his stuff packed right next to him. They're ready to go. Excuse me. But yeah, that's been a long stay down there. And it's hard, man. Every day it's the same thing over and over again. I give the players a lot of credit and the coaches and everybody who's been down there. Kudos to them. I wouldn't want to do it.
Well, to Coach's point, let's take a look, guys, at what LeBron is capable of in a closeout performance. He's averaging more than 28 points in similar games, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists a game. But perhaps most impressive, he's 38 and 10 in closeout games, which is the best record for any player in NBA history. Now, Zeke, you once told me that if you needed to win one playoff game, you would choose Michael Jordan. But if you had to win a series, you would take LeBron James. Why is that?
Well, I just think LeBron beats you in so many different ways. When you're talking about a complete player over the course of time, as we just saw, he rebounds, he defends, he scores, he assists. He plays chess out on the floor, so he figures out how to beat you. And then when he figures out how to beat you, then he's going to beat you consistently every single time. You know, he's by far one of the smartest players who's ever played the game. And, you know, Kevin and I was just talking, about some of those Lakers-Celtics matchups. And, you know, watching Bird and watching Magic have chess matches intellectually out on the floor is the thing that fascinated all of us so much. Now, there are people who play the game, and then there are people who intellectually think the game out on the floor in terms of playing chess. LeBron James does that throughout a series, and you can see from game 1 to game 2 to game 3 to game 4 and now to the closeout. He's figured out what Miami does, and he's going to say, I'm going to score 30 points, I'm going to score 40 points, I'm going to score 50 points. LeBron James will figure out a way to make AD look good, to make, Danny Green look good, to make this guy look good. I mean, he just beats you in so many different ways. And that's why, to me, I think we're watching one of the best to ever do it.
Grant, you've had the opportunity to compete against LeBron. You've had the opportunity to watch him close out as an analyst as well. What are your expectations for him in this closeout scenario?
Well, Kristen, my expectations for him are, he's going to continue with this great play. Obviously, the numbers don't lie, his production throughout the years, but, he's that one consistent player for the Lakers throughout this entire bubble, throughout the entire postseason. Sometimes I think you can get caught up in the moment, and I've obviously not played in a closeout game in an NBA Finals like Isiah and Kevin McHale have. But you don't know who's going to show up for the Lakers. We've seen that this series. We've seen certain people play very well and then maybe come back and have a pedestrian game. LeBron, he will leave it all out there. He's trying to close this out right now. He wants to get this win. So I expect big numbers from him and big numbers in every category: rebounding, assists, scoring, leading. The question then becomes who's going to step up and who from the Lakers is going to play big along with him. As great as he is, he needs KCP, he needs AD, he needs somebody, somebody to Markieff Morris. He needs his guys to play big and come along for the ride with him. And if that were to happen, then you know what? They'll be crowned champions for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the Miami Heat, though, because, again, no Goran Dragic in this one as he continues to rehab a torn plantar fascia in his foot. So, Coach, what do you see as the balance between Jimmy Butler scoring and perhaps facilitating this Heat offense in this game?
Yeah, he's going to have to score more. He's going to have to attack more. I think Smitty made a good point. He's going to have to run off picks and have AD start chasing him. When he spaces up AD and AD's got his feet set, squaring him up, it is really hard for a guy of Jimmy Butler's size to get a clean shot off against AD, who's so long, gets those hands up, and just does a great job of keeping between the basket and anybody he's guarding. So the last thing you're going to do if you're playing against AD, you're going to have to shoot over his extended hand. Now, if Butler can come off running and get off some screens and maybe get AD tracing him and shake himself free, but he's got to find a way to score. And, the one thing about Miami, I've always said, I love how hard they play. They have a great team as far as grit and toughness. They don't have that one guy you can just throw the ball to at a spot and say, go to work. Kareem on the right box. LeBron James at the top of the key circle above the three-point line. Let him go downhill. They don't have a guy like that. So everything they do offensively is from movement. They'll have 7 or 8 different movements in one offensive set. The ball goes, and they work really, really hard to get good shots against a really good defensive team like Miami. So what's going to have to happen? Hero's going to have to make shots. Crowder's going to have to make shots. Kelly Olynyk. All these guys are going to have to make a lot of shots, and they're going to play hard. There's no doubt about that. But are they good enough? Because the 2 best players in this series, as far as the best player overall, is LeBron James. And the best two-way guy out there is AD, and they're on one team. They're on the Lakers. So the Heat have got a tremendous steep hill to climb, but they're going to battle. They need some guys to get hot. They need some guys to shoot, and Butler's got to be the man to facilitate, because what Goran Dragic did for them is he played downhill off pick and roll. Everybody else plays a little more east-west off pick and roll. Dragic played downhill, and they're going to miss that.
Bam Adebayo, though, did return to the lineup in Game 4 after an MRI revealed a strained neck on his left side. To utilize him in this game, not only offensively, but against Anthony Davis as well. What is it?
Well, they like to use Bam at the high post, and he's actually their facilitator and decision maker at the high post in their offense. You see, they'll enter the ball to him at the high post. They'll have some weak side action that he'll read, then he'll have some strong side action that he'll read. And if nothing's there, then he goes into dribble, handoff, screen, and roll. So he's really their best decision maker outside of Dragic on the offensive side of the basketball. But, the thing that I worry about tonight, facing a closeout game, with all that movement and all that, as Kevin just, accurately described, they're going to need a lot of players to play well, shoot the ball well, touch the basketball. And one thing to look for early in the game and even late in the game, with so many people touching the basketball and so much movement, there will be some turnovers. And if Miami has a lot of turnovers, then that allows the Lakers to get out in transition, and they can open up this game very quickly. So, that's one thing to watch for with all the movement and all the dribble handoff and weak side action and everyone touching the basketball. Can they trust everyone in a closeout game to really handle the basketball and not turn it over?
Well, our pregame coverage will continue after we take a quick break. And later, the 2-time champion and 11-time NBA All-Star Chris Bosh is going to join us to discuss the series at hand. He knows a little something about not only winning one for the Miami Heat, but preparing alongside LeBron James. And still to come, our Steve Smith will catch up with Anthony Davis ahead of Game 5 with his opportunity to win